Hello there, this is Mr. Anderson here to try and help you pass your GCSE citizenship exam with the highest possible mark. This podcast is to tell you all about the exam, what's in it, and give you a few handy tips. To begin with, don't forget the citizenship course is split into 3 sections. Section 1, Human Rights, Section 2, Power, Politics and the Media, and Section 3, The Global Village, and each of these will be covered in the exam. The exam itself is split into 3 sections, Part A, B and C, and we're going to go through each of those now. To begin with though, some overall hints and tips. The exam's quite short, it's only an hour and a half, but in that time you've got an awful lot to do. The exam is worth 60% of your final mark, with the other 40% coming from the coursework that you really should have done by now. Now, there are 3 sections in the exam, and there is a booklet available to go through the exam and to give you some practice questions which you should be able to get from your citizenship teacher. And don't forget, there are lots and lots of places you can go to find the facts and information that you need to do well in this exam. But here are a few tips for you. Don't forget, look at the marks available for each question. If a multiple choice question is worth 1 mark, then you must select 1 option. If it's worth 2 marks, then select 2 options. It might seem obvious, but an awful lot of people miss out on marks by not selecting the correct number of options that they can take. For written questions, some of the shorter answers and the essay answers, always check how many marks there are available before you answer. If it's worth 1 mark, then you only need to make 1 relevant point to the question. However, if there are 2 or more, you need to think of a more detailed answer and make sure you're actually answering the question that's asked. Now, when it comes to how to tackle the 3 sections, Section A you should spend about 15 to 20 minutes on, and around about half an hour to 35 minutes on the 2 other parts of the exam, sections B and C. You should answer every single question in parts A and B of the exam, and in section C you answer all of the questions in the first part, but at the end you get a choice of 3 questions to write an essay about. Pick 1 and make sure you pick the one that you think you know the most about. Now, in the citizenship exam there are 3 types of question. Many of them are multiple choice. And as I've already said, make sure that for the multiple choice questions you are selecting the right number of answers to give. If you give too many, you'll get no marks at all, and if you give too few, well, why not guess if you're not sure? There is a chance you'll get it right. Then there are 2 other types of question. There are short written answers and then the longer written answers. The short written answers will normally be worth between 2 and 4 marks. And don't forget, sometimes you'll be asked to identify and explain, and that will often be worth 4 marks. So you'll be given a mark for 2 identifications and then a mark each for 2 explanations to go with them. The longer written questions are where an awful lot of people missed out on easy marks. These can be worth up to 9 marks each, and the way that people missed out was by answering yes or no. That is never the right answer to give in a citizenship question. Remember, much of citizenship is about debate, and people hold different points of view. So when you're given a question, it will even say to you, give your answer showing that you have explored another point of view. So you will be given a statement and asked to show whether or not you agree with it. Do not say yes and do not say no. Explore yes and explore no, and then at the end present your own point of view. Because if you only give one side of the argument, you'll only get half marks at the very most. Now, moving on to section A of your exam. In this section, you must answer questions about your coursework. You'll be asked what your coursework was about, and you could then be asked how you chose your coursework activity, what was difficult about doing it, who it helped, what the purpose of it was, how successful or otherwise you were, and what you have learned from it. And these are all usually worth 1 or 2 marks. But at the end of section A there'll be a longer written answer, usually worth 8 or 9 marks. And again, you'll be asked to agree or disagree with a statement. Remember, you must do both. Never just agree or disagree with it. If you want to get 5 or more marks, you've got to mention different points of view. And if you want to get the very top marks, you need to come to a reasonable conclusion using evidence and arguments from different points of view. Now, you are allowed to use bullet points in this answer, but these bullet points must also be explained. And if you look in your booklet, there are a variety of questions from recent years used in section A. This will give you an idea about what you need to think about, but make sure that you are going over your coursework in your head before you go in. Now in section B of the exam, you should again spend around about 35 minutes answering all of these questions, and there will be a mix. But many of the questions here will be multiple choice and short written answers. It begins with a source, a piece of evidence. It could be a photograph or a series of photographs. It could be some information about numbers, or it could be a newspaper article or an account of a television interview with someone famous over the last 6 months to 1 year. And it'll be about topics that have been in the news, which is why I, and I'm sure your other teachers, have been telling you that you should be keeping an eye on the news. If you haven't, now is the time to trawl through the BBC News website. Make sure you read the source thoroughly. If you do that, you should have a good stab at answering all of the questions. Don't rush, but don't linger for too long either. If you read it carefully and think carefully, you'll be able to answer most of the questions with very little difficulty. And at the end of each of the 4 questions, there will be one longer question, probably worth 4 marks, in which you have to give a bit of evidence or some examples from different points of view. Now, section C is the final part of your exam, and again it'll begin with a series of questions based on all 3 of the themes from the course. They'll begin with short multiple choice answers and short written answers, but at the end of it is a selection. They will present you with 3 questions, one from each of the 3 themes, and you'll be asked to choose one and answer that one question. And this question is normally worth 9 marks. That's 9% of the total of your exam. Now, select carefully, read all 3 questions and the information that goes with them, and decide which one you feel you can answer the most comprehensively. So it's worth taking time to decide which one is the best one for you. Now, this question will be a statement giving an opinion, and it will ask to what extent you agree with it or how far you believe the statement to be true. Now, this will be followed by a series of bullet points giving you a guide to what sort of information you might wish to include in your answer. And here are some hints to make sure you can get the highest mark possible. Again, I reiterate, you must present both sides of the argument. For example, if a question were to state oranges are better than apples, you must not say, oh, I like apples better than oranges because. You've got to say why some people would agree with the statement and why other people would disagree with the statement. Then for each argument you make, try to give some supporting evidence from your own experience, from your studies, from the news and current affairs, and from all of them. Make a point and then explain it. And having explored both sides of the argument, you can then draw a conclusion based upon what you've written. Having considered both sides of the argument, do you agree or disagree with the statement, and why? With just a little thought, you can get a very high mark on this answer, as long as you select the right question for you, explore both sides of the argument, give evidence and examples, and then draw a conclusion. And again, your exam tips booklet available from me or your citizenship teacher will give you some examples of these from the last few years. You should spend no more than 15 minutes on that final question. But most of all, don't panic, and there are always the bullet points there to help you scaffold your question. If you really want to get to the highest mark, use those bullet points by all means, but make sure you expand on them and make sure you bring in other ideas of your own that aren't on there as well. Above all else, in the exam, relax and good luck with it.